Antonio Spurs. It is March 9th today when I am filming this episode. They have the second best record in the NBA, and they have only lost one game since February 1st. And some of the teams that they have beaten, the Detroit Pistons, they've beaten them twice in this stretch of games. And the Detroit Pistons are currently #1 in the Eastern Conference. They also had an insane win over the Los Angeles Clippers, and we will get to that. And just last night, they beat the Houston Rockets once again. Now, on top of that, you guys, the Spurs are #1 in net efficiency rating. They are #2 offensively in the league, and they are #1 in their defensive efficiency rating. And this is crazy.
Stephen A. Smith delivered a seismic truth bomb that has left the sports world reeling, finally acknowledging what fans knew all along about the WNBA's catastrophic mishandling of Caitlin Clark. Looking straight into the camera, he demolished the league's narrative about veteran dues and rookie hazing, exposing how they tried to suppress a once-in-a-generation talent who deserved reverence, not resistance. His brutal takedown of the gatekeeping culture was television gold, leaving critics scrambling for cover as he dismantled their arguments piece by piece. The silence in that studio spoke volumes about how completely he had exposed the league's biggest blunder in modern history.
End up winning this game. Now, after this game, Victor Wembanyama is visibly emotional. He is actually crying after this game, and he goes into his post-game interview, and the reporter asks him, like, what's going through your mind? Like, I can see you're really emotional right now. And he says, you know what, I'm exhausted. This is some of the best 48 hours of basketball that I've ever played, but I'm so exhausted. I was actually nervous for a second that he was going to pass out because he was kind of swaying around, he was bending over. But what we saw from Wemby was pure emotion and joy. You saw the team was so excited to win this game. This is a regular season game in the beginning of March. Yes,
the foundation of his explosive argument centered on a devastating parallel between the WNBA's Clark debacle and the NBA's initial skepticism about Victor Wembanyama's San Antonio Spurs. Smith hammered home how basketball experts had completely whiffed on predicting the Spurs' trajectory, expecting them to barely scrape into the play-in tournament, while they've instead rocketed to elite status. This mirrors exactly how the WNBA underestimated Clark's transformative impact, treating her like an ordinary rookie when she's clearly an otherworldly talent who rewrites the rulebook. The comparison stung because it highlighted how both leagues failed to recognize that when you have an alien-level player, traditional rebuilding timelines become irrelevant.
So much fight from the San Antonio Spurs. Now, the scariest part about the San Antonio Spurs is that any given night, anybody can step up. Now, just a few games before this, Victor Wembanyama only had 5 shots at the basket. He ended the game with 10 points. This is just a few games ago. And then he has 38 against the Detroit Pistons. Then he has another 27 points against the Los Angeles Clippers. But the players who stepped up in this game and really turned the tides were players like Julian Champagnie, who got super hot from 3, and rookie Carter Bryant, who made so many defensive stops that changed the entire moment.
Remember when basketball analysts were literally mocking the idea of San Antonio making any meaningful playoff noise, predicting at best a lucky 6th seed if the stars aligned perfectly? Fast forward to today, and the Spurs are sitting pretty with the NBA's second-best record, having lost just one game since February started while dismantling powerhouses like Detroit and the Clippers. This stunning reversal perfectly captures Stephen A's point about the WNBA's short-sightedness with Clark, showing how the league's cramped expectations were laughably inadequate for containing her massive talent. The parallels are undeniable when you see how both situations involved establishment voices trying to minimize greatness that was too big for their small-minded frameworks.
Haters wrong. And he was also asked about it in a recent interview, just about the physicality, and we've talked about it on this channel, how it seems like teams are just trying to be super physical with Victor Wembanyama because it's hard to guard him any other way. And he says players are trying to make it a physical game all the time. That's where it's coming from. Also, man, I'm pissed. I'm not stronger than everybody, but I will get there. And the work I did last summer, that's what helped me the most this season. And I think that's kind of scary. It's kind of scary for him to say, I'm not the strongest right now, but I'm gonna get there. Because not only has Victor Wembanyama expanded his bag, now he's shooting 3-pointers. We've seen
the efficiency numbers behind San Antonio's dominance make Stephen A's comparison even more devastating, as the Spurs currently lead the entire NBA in both net rating and defensive efficiency through pure team basketball excellence. Their selfless ball movement and ego-free approach represents everything Smith believes the WNBA should have emphasized about Clark's game, instead of manufacturing petty rivalries and jealousy storylines. While the Spurs celebrate extra passes and collective success, the WNBA media was busy trying to tear down their biggest star rather than showcasing the unselfish high-level basketball she brings every night. The contrast couldn't be starker between how a league should nurture generational talent versus how they chose to handle theirs.
Have fellow MVP candidates like Nikola Jokic with high praise for Wemby. Jokic said he is changing basketball. He's a rim protector, he's shooting threes, he is unique. I'm glad that I'll probably retire before Wemby holds the entire league in a chokehold. And with this last stretch of Spurs wins, a lot of people have thrown Victor Wembanyama into that MVP conversation. Now, I believe that he should have been in this MVP conversation, at least in the top 5 players in the NBA currently. I do also think that Victor Wembanyama is the runaway frontrunner for Defensive Player of the Year. If you look at the amount of blocks that he has on the night. Also, by the way, before we get into this MVP,
the most terrifying aspect of these alien-level performers is their ability to completely flip games on a whim. Something Smith illustrated through Wembanyama's explosive range from quiet 10-point outings to nuclear 38-point eruptions against elite competition. Even when facing brutal back-to-back schedules and physical punishment designed to wear him down, Wemby responds with signature performances that silence doubters and energize teammates. Smith emphasized that Clark faces this same relentless targeting every single night, with opponents resorting to excessive physicality because it's literally their only hope of slowing her down. Like Wembanyama, she's proven hungry for more contact and refuses to back down, no matter how hard the hits come or how desperate the tactics get.
Conversation. Have you seen Victor Wembanyama's no-look blocks? Because that seems to be his new favorite skill. He does this thing where he kind of backs into the paint. It looks like he's playing help side defense. Someone will be driving in, and he'll kind of be looking away like he's gonna go on the help side. All of a sudden, he turns around and swats the shot. We've seen the no-look passes. Now Victor Wembanyama is coining the no-look block, and he had a huge one last night where he literally volleyball swatted it into the stands. But let's talk about this MVP race, because if you put the statistical numbers for Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Victor Wembanyama,
the raw emotional investment these superstars bring elevates their performances beyond mere statistics. Something perfectly captured when Wembanyama broke down crying after the Spurs' incredible 25-point comeback against the Clippers. His tears during that post-game interview, admitting exhaustion while calling it the best basketball of his life, revealed the pure passion that's been missing from superstar culture for years. Stephen A. connected this directly to Clark's situation, noting how she carries similar emotional weight every time she steps on the court, playing not just for wins but for an entire league's survival and growth. The burden of being the face of a sport while facing constant criticism and physical targeting would crush most players. But these aliens thrive under that pressure.
I think we should start talking about Nikola Jokic like he is in the top 10 players of all-time discussion. That's how we should be looking at Nikola Jokic, and I feel like because we've seen him be so dominant for so many years, we've gotten a little desensitized to it. But as you can see here, he's leading in a lot of statistical categories. Then you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is just such a great all-around player, and I do also think that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gets some unwarranted slander. Now, he is somebody who has learned the system. He has learned how to get to the free throw line, and we've heard coaches talk about it.
The supporting cast development around these transcendent talents proves that great leaders elevate everyone in their orbit, with players like Steph Castle and Dylan Harper emerging as legitimate contributors in San Antonio's system. Castle's rapid second-year development and Harper's underrated rookie impact demonstrate how elite players create winning cultures that maximize everyone's potential through increased opportunities and confidence. Stephen A. argued this is exactly what's happening with Clark's effect on her teammates, showing how she functions as a catalyst rather than a solo act who makes everyone around her better. When the Spurs consistently have 6 players reaching double digits, it's a testament to the unselfish culture that their superstar has helped establish through leading by example.
Mindset that this team has, with the power of friendship that this team has, with the ethical basketball, with the unselfish basketball that this team plays, I wouldn't count them out. I truly wouldn't count them out. And I would love, personally, I would love to see an Oklahoma City Thunder versus San Antonio Spurs Western Conference final. And I do think that that would be their toughest opponent come playoff time. But with that, you guys, I think that's all that I have for you you today. Please let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below. How far do you think the Spurs can go come playoff time? And what are your predictions for the NBA Finals? Please let me know in the comments below. Thumbs up this video if you enjoyed it. Click that little subscribe button because
The trademark unselfishness that defines San Antonio's beautiful brand of basketball should serve as a blueprint for how the WNBA could have maximized Clark's impact on the sport. Watching sequences where Castle drives and kicks to Harper, who finds the corner man, who makes the extra pass to an even more open shooter, represents basketball at its most ethical and effective. Smith pointed out that instead of highlighting Clark's similar ability to create opportunities for teammates through gravity and passing, the WNBA chose to focus on manufactured drama and controversy. The fundamental, ego-free approach that built the Spurs dynasty is the same path Clark has been trying to follow, but the league's media coverage emphasized conflict over basketball excellence. Even reigning MVP Nikola Jokic has taken notice of this generational shift, offering high praise for Wembanyama's unique rim protection and game-changing impact, while joking that he's glad retirement might come before facing this young star's prime. Stephen A. used Jokic's respectful recognition to illustrate how WNBA veterans should have approached Clark's arrival, showing respect for obvious greatness instead of trying to fight the inevitable changing of the guard. When the world's best players acknowledge that a rookie represents a legitimate threat to the established order, it reveals just how special these talents truly are. The mature, welcoming approach from established stars like Jokic makes the WNBA's initial resistance look even more petty and short-sighted. The skill evolution we're witnessing reaches almost ridiculous levels, with Wembanyama now perfecting signature moves like the no-look block where he baits drivers while looking away before volleyball spiking shots into the stands. This kind of psychological warfare represents a level of court awareness and confidence that hasn't been seen in decades, similar to how Clark's logo threes and transition passing leave defenders looking completely lost. Stephen A. emphasized that you simply cannot game plan against this type of otherworldly talent because traditional coaching strategies become obsolete when facing players with this expansive a skill set. The WNBA's mistake was thinking they could control or diminish something that transcends normal basketball limitations through conventional resistance. The targeted physicality conversation reached a boiling point when Stephen A. discussed Wembanyama's recent comments about being frustrated that he isn't yet the strongest player on the court, while opponents try to grind every game into a physical battle. Wemby's warning that he's getting stronger every day should terrify teams trying to use muscle to neutralize his skill, because that approach is already failing miserably against his current frame. Clark has endured identical targeting since her first preseason appearance, with critics expecting the contact to break her spirit while it has actually sharpened her resolve and improved her contact finishing. The league's attempt to use physicality as a weapon against pure talent represents old-school thinking that cannot stop the inevitable march of progress. Statistical analysis often fails to capture the true gravitational impact these aliens have on winning basketball, similar to how Luka Doncic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's numbers don't fully reflect their floor-warping presence. When Wembanyama enters the game, teams literally stop attacking the rim because his wingspan and timing create a psychological barrier that changes offensive approaches entirely. Smith argued that Clark possesses identical gravity, forcing defenses to commit multiple players to her positioning while leaving teammates with wide-open opportunities that don't appear on basic stat sheets. This invisible impact represents the most valuable type of basketball contribution because it makes everyone better while creating systematic advantages that compound throughout games. The media slander campaign against young greatness has become a predictable pattern, with critics calling rising stars overhyped or claiming leagues are manufacturing their success through favorable treatment. We witnessed this exact playbook earlier this season when analysts declared the Spurs were peaking too early or dismissed their success as an unsustainable fluke, only to watch them maintain elite status in the brutal Western Conference. Stephen A. made it crystal clear that the WNBA's catastrophic error was listening to the vocal minority of haters instead of protecting and promoting the player who was delivering record-breaking television ratings and sold-out arenas. The business case for embracing Clark was overwhelming, making the league's initial resistance even more inexplicable. The championship-level chemistry developing in San Antonio showcases the power of ego-free basketball, with role players like Julian Champagnie and Keaton Bryant making game-changing contributions without worrying about individual recognition. This team-first mentality creates a dangerous dynamic where any player can step up on any given night, making the Spurs incredibly difficult to scout and game plan against. Stephen A. noted that if the WNBA had immediately embraced Clark with this kind of collective approach, highlighting how she makes teammates better rather than focusing on individual rivalries, the league's growth would have been even more explosive. Success becomes contagious when your best player consistently demonstrates that team goals matter more than personal statistics or accolades. Wembanyama's recent comments about playoff readiness revealed a maturity level that's rare for someone his age, acknowledging that while he knows the team is talented, the postseason will be their real measuring stick. His humble admission about lacking playoff experience while embracing the challenge of proving themselves under pressure shows the self-awareness that separates good players from great ones. Stephen A. sees this exact same mindset in Clark, who understands the massive expectations while refusing to run from the responsibility of elevating an entire sport. Both players are using regular season success as preparation for bigger battles rather than getting comfortable with early achievements. The comparison to the classic Spurs dynasty adds another layer to Stephen A.'s argument, as Tim Duncan, David Robinson, and Manu Ginobili built multiple championships on fundamental, unselfish basketball that sometimes lacked flash but never lacked effectiveness. Duncan's quiet dominance never received proper recognition because he prioritized winning over individual publicity, creating a foundation that made San Antonio the most respected organization in professional sports. Smith believes Clark is building the same type of sustainable foundation for the WNBA, combining flashy range and ball handling with the fundamental principles that create lasting success. Her willingness to make the extra pass and create for others proves that her game is rooted in championship-level basketball philosophy. The work ethic behind these meteoric rises tells the real story of why these players are succeeding where others have failed. With Wembanyama crediting his summer preparation for expanding his three-point range and physical readiness for the 82-game grind. He wasn't resting on his rookie success but instead attacking his weaknesses and building new weapons to stay ahead of defensive adjustments and scouting reports. Stephen A. highlighted Clark's legendary preparation habits, noting that she didn't accidentally become great but rather practiced until her game became bulletproof against any defensive strategy. The WNBA's mistake was assuming she was just a media creation, rather than recognizing the thousands of gym hours that produced her seemingly effortless dominance. A specific sequence from a recent Spurs game perfectly illustrates the trust and basketball IQ that defines this new era, with Stephon Castle driving into traffic, seeing 4 defenders collapse, and making the smart pass to an open teammate instead of forcing a difficult shot. This level of court awareness and trust in a young core creates the foundation for sustainable success because it's based on making the right basketball play regardless of individual statistics. Stephen A. argued that the WNBA should have trusted this same process with Clark, recognizing that her presence would naturally elevate the entire league's level of play through improved competition and fan engagement. Instead of clinging to outdated gatekeeping mentalities, they should have been building infrastructure to support the massive influx of new fans and attention she brought from college basketball. The MVP conversation has evolved beyond traditional statistics to focus on players who most significantly change game outcomes, whether through Jokic's playmaking, Doncic's clutch performances, or Wembanyama's defensive presence. Stephen A. firmly believes Clark represents the ultimate definition of valuable player because her impact on the WNBA extends far beyond points per game to encompass television ratings, arena attendance, and overall cultural relevance. Without her transcendent college-to-pro transition, the conversation around women's basketball would be completely different, making her the engine driving the entire sport forward into mainstream consciousness. Her value cannot be measured through traditional metrics because she's operating on a completely different level of influence and importance. Looking toward the future, Stephen A. envisions legendary matchups like a potential Thunder versus Spurs Western Conference Final, featuring 2 young, hungry teams with minimal playoff experience battling for championship positioning. This type of new school collision represents the changing of the guard in professional basketball, where speed, range, and fearlessness are replacing traditional approaches to winning. He sees identical potential in the WNBA, where Clark is leading a generational shift that challenges established hierarchies through superior skill and modern basketball concepts. The league's initial resistance to this evolution represents their biggest strategic mistake of the modern era, fighting inevitable progress instead of embracing it. With playoff seeding battles intensifying, every game carries championship implications as teams make their final push toward postseason positioning and home court advantages. The Spurs are maintaining laser focus while avoiding distractions, keeping their collective eye on the ultimate prize, rather than getting caught up in individual accolades or media noise. Stephen A. believes Clark is demonstrating identical mental toughness by tuning out criticism from veterans and focusing exclusively on winning basketball games at the highest level. This type of championship mindset separates good players from all-time greats because it prioritizes team success over personal validation or external approval. The most terrifying reality for established players is that these generational talents are still improving at rapid rapid rates, with Wembanyama only in his third season, and his supporting cast even younger than their already impressive current versions. They haven't reached their physical or mental primes yet, meaning their current dominance represents just the beginning of their potential impact on professional basketball. Clark is similarly positioned at the start of a career that's already rewriting record books that had stood for decades, suggesting her peak years will be even more spectacular than this historic rookie campaign. Stephen A. concluded that we're witnessing the birth of a completely new era where the WNBA has no choice but to embrace the change they initially resisted. The ultimate lesson of this season centers on talent's inevitable triumph over tradition. Whether through San Antonio's unlikely rise in the NBA, or Clark's forced evolution of the WNBA despite institutional resistance. Stephen A.'s admission represents a wake-up call for everyone who tried to minimize the impact of transcendent players because their greatness threatened comfortable established orders. We should be celebrating the opportunity to watch these aliens change basketball in real time rather than fighting against progress that benefits everyone involved. The game is in excellent hands with these generational talents leading the way, and as long as we keep our eyes on the court instead of manufactured controversies, we're going to witness things we never imagined were possible in professional basketball.